Well, let's bring in now the Saskatchewan Premier Scott Moe. He is at the Diefenbaker building in Ottawa. Premier Moe, thank you for taking the time.
Thank you, Michael.
I'm wondering, first and foremost, your judgment on the meeting that has taken place with the First Ministers today. Was it, in your opinion, productive?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was an opportunity for us as 13 premiers and the Prime Minister and a couple of federal ministers to come together and to really lay out what the the short-term goals and efforts and where we need to focus our time in the short term is, but also to have some confidential conversations on what the longer term might look like. We have a great and strong North American economy. It's an integrated economy between Canada and the U.S. across that 49th parallel, and for us to continue to be, and we are, a significant part of the success of that continental strength, economic strength that we have, we need to be able to do that in a non-tariff, free and open market access environment. And so that's the goal. That's what we'll be engaging on in the next period of time and have been engaging on for some period of time now.
Now, you, going into today's meeting, were warning, I guess, your counterparts about being too hung up on talk of retaliation, counter-tariffs on anything that might come from the United States. Were you concerned by what you heard from your premiers and your colleagues?
Listen, we have some long-term, discussions about, what some of the steps might be, and we've been through this years ago with the country of origin labeling dispute that we had at the U.S. We've been through with more recently with the steel tariffs in the U.S. Saskatchewan has been part of these discussions with other countries around the world as well, as we do export to over 160 countries. And so, having tariff-based disputes with countries is not new. This one is larger, much more broad, and it is with our largest trading partner. So there is a process that we need to, constantly remind ourselves of as provincial leaders, subnational leaders, and to work with the federal government on how best do we represent collectively all Canadians. That's what we discussed today. And I was satisfied with the way that discussion went. And we have, something I think that's very important to do right now, and we've been doing it for a period of time, and we can do this as subnational leaders, is to reach out to decision makers, policy makers, businessmen in the U.S. and are interested and have a stake in the North American economy, and to discuss with them just how integrated that economy is and how that the success of that integration falters when there are tariffs that are being applied, regardless of where they are. And so the goal is to have that open, free marketplace, that non-tariff marketplace, and that's really, I think, the focus that is coming out of this meeting today is how do we engage with everyone that we can, whether we be a subnational leader or part of the federal government, in making that happen.
I know you're pressed for time today, but I do want you to address, if you will, Canadians who are listening to this conversation right now, who are worried that with the incoming U.S. administration, that their jobs may be on the line, that their economic prosperity and future may be on the line. What's your message to Canadians who are right now worried about a 25% tariff coming down from Washington?
Well, there is some uncertainty in this, and I think it's designed by President-elect Trump to create some uncertainty. And what I would say to those Canadians is that you do have 13 subnational leaders aligning with the federal government, and that's irrespective of who the federal government is today or who it might be in a few months, that we will align and represent Canadian interests as a whole, and we will ensure that we're representing the strength that they bring to that North American economy and the strength that they bring to our energy, manufacturing, and food security, our continental energy manufacturing and food security in North America, and how then we actually provide those goods to other areas of the world as well. Canada can be very proud of what we bring to that table, what we bring to that integrated economy, and you have subnational leaders that are reaching out to American policymakers today, up to and including President Trump, to ensure that we get back to that sooner rather than later. But this is a very serious discussion. We may not need to take everything President-elect Trump says literally, but we do need to take it very seriously. This is our largest trading partner. This is our most significant ally, and leaders, subnational and national leaders in this nation are working very hard on their behalf.
Premier Moe, as I said, you're pressed for time, so I very much appreciate you sharing some time with us today. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Michael.
Okay, well, let's get back to our panel now who were listening into that discussion. What stood out for you from what you heard from Premier Moe, Shannon?
I noted he didn't directly answer your question about whether he was concerned about his colleagues and their approaches. He just sort of deked around it. Although he didn't sound like he was in a fighting mood. He sounded pretty conciliatory. So to me, it sent the signal that whatever happened around the table, they had come out of it at least trying to present a unified front. He also emphasized over and over, and this is something I heard him say earlier this morning too, the integrated economies. The fact that like everyone goes down in a heap if this comes in. It reminds me a bit of, I don't for a moment think that Donald Trump, God bless him, is like watching premiers do press conferences in the middle of the afternoon. But in the first Trump administration, when his handlers would try to communicate with him through the Sunday shows, like there's all these different channels that people try to use to try to send messages, because realistically, if he implements 25% tariffs on Canada, that's going to be very bad for his country too, even aside from retaliatory tariffs. So you sense that there's this messaging of like, Donald, are you sure you want to do this? This wouldn't be great for your people either. And maybe people are hoping that they'll find some receptive American audience. Maybe, subnational leaders are hearing this and pressing the case, because this is really not a one-way street in terms of the pain that would stem from this. So you just hope you can send the message that it would be too painful to be worth it for him.
Chris, what did you take out of it?
Very similar, in fact, to Shannon, and I kind of also noted something he said, and I might be reading into his words a little bit too much. We'll wait to see.
That's what we're here to do.
Yeah, that's exactly. We're just here to over-speculate. But he said you can't necessarily take Donald Trump's word for everything that he says, but the threat is also real. And I question if that means that he received information either from one of the people in the room who had met with Trump directly or had heard from his administration, to the fact that something's coming, but it might not be the wide-ranging 25% across-the-board tariffs. And I'm sure that that's what they're hoping for. My understanding is that the consensus in Canada is that something's going to happen next week against Canada, and it's trying to mitigate what that looks like. That is the objective. Ideally, nothing happens, but something's going to happen. Trump just likes doing, he promises something, he likes delivering a portion of it at the very least, flexing some muscle. And so I do wonder how Premier Moe basically saying, don't always take what he says for cash, but expect, we have to be ready, is, his way of kind of tempering fears and saying, oh, well, something's coming, but 25% across the board is crazy. On the flip side, I remember speaking to a gentleman called Simon Beauchemin, who used to be in the U.S.-Canada war room for PMO during the first Trump administration, and he had worked on the trade war back then. And in an interview, he had told me, what we learned from that one is that Trump really doesn't really care about the damage that he's doing to his own people. It's not he clearly didn't learn from that tariff war in 2018 if he's so quickly jumping to a new one now. And so the pain that this might inflict on Americans might not be as top of mind as Canadians might hope and the Canadian administration might hope. And I kind of also keep that in mind when thinking about what could happen next week, frankly.
Nick? What did you take from what we heard from Premier Moe? And to be fair, it was a short interview. He had very little time getting ready for the final news conference. But what did you take from it?
I mean, it was a cards close to the chest interview. But what I did notice was he referred to long-term conversations. And
That's what stuck out for me, too.
I wonder if he is sort of hinting there at pushing off the things that they really kind of disagree about to some time in the future. But they did come up with some kind of plan where they all found consensus, and that's why they're all going to be at the same table today talking to us about it. Don't want to read too much into what he said, but I thought it was notable that he said, well, there's something long-term here to talk about. It implies there was something short-term that they also found some time for.